like, first of all, it's like energizing, so I get why people are so hyped up on Austin in that in that regard. But the other thing is that there is something about that like insulation, and it's like all, you know, so many good, you know, culture pockets happen in these tiny little scenes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is because there's too much outside influence. Like, even anyone that's making, like, has a company that you're hyper focused on, I feel like the more you look at this and look at this, the more you start even thinking about life wise, you're just like, oh, maybe I should be doing that. There's so many inputs that are coming in. You're looking at social media. Should I be focusing more on this? Like, too many inputs make you screwed.
And there's no traditional industry there. Like, nobody there is auditioning for stuff.
Nobody's getting involved with none of that stuff.
Yeah, you're just like doing stand-up podcasts and just living your life. And that's it. There is no real external industry.
So they become these little arts hubs. And I try to create those little bubbles for myself. You know, you just try. You have to be good at anything. But it is like, when you actually structurally do it, it kind of reminded me of like, Tim Pool had that like compound, and they do sort of live in their own little world out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they kind of have to.
They do. And it's like, so you're only around people that are like funny and kind of, you know, have similar goals than you.
Like, is there a very alty scene as well there?
Yeah, there's both. Yeah,
there is. Yeah. Like that scene exists.
I'm sure if you talk to 90% of comedians, they're like, yeah, Joe Rogan and his 10 friends is not the Austin scene.
Yeah. Everybody's like, yeah, there's a whole scene outside of like, that's like the fucking.
We also like aren't even allowed to go to that club.
Yeah, that's like the high school clique. Nobody's allowed to.
Yeah. So I am like, obviously I was like in a situation where it was cool that I got to do the shows and hang out with them and all that stuff. But I'm sure that you talk to most people, they're like, oh yeah, you thought that was cool. He's like, you know, there's something cool about just like being in the place, hanging out with the 5 biggest comedians in the world. Like, oh yeah, everyone's like, yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, so I get what you're saying, of course. But I'm just saying, like, even people that are in mid positions and even in not like anything to do with entertainment, it did make me remember that you have to fucking find ways to like filter out all the information. And this was a good kind of interesting way to look at that, because these people, you know, there's people that are, you know, the #1 news story in the world once a week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
So it's like, if you don't have that sort of, you know, insulation from that, you'd lose your brain, right?
Yeah.
Like, how many people do we know that are, you know, have one little thing on tiny scales, and it's like they're losing their minds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and being in New York for sure too, or LA or whatever. It's a different thing out there. You're just dealing with so many more
I think
factors.
New York's better than Los Angeles for that. You're more like, you know, you meet up with people, I think, at the cellar. And I always said this, like, you meet up with people around here, and I think there's a little more of talking about what bit are you working on, or like, what's this, like, how was this show, as opposed to like, what show are you on? What thing did you get? Like,
yeah, like what auditions are you going for? Like,
yeah,
what writer's room are you in? Like, whatever, all that shit.
A little more industry talk than actual like art talk or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that it did remind me that you need to like guard your own brain from all of the information that's in the world if you want a kind of like, if you want your thing to keep progressing and getting better and filling in gaps, instead of looking at only new things, you're kind of looking at, how could I improve my little thing?
Yeah.
Which is probably one of the piece of advice is that everyone always needs to like re-up always, you know what I mean?
Guard your brain.
You do have to guard your brain,
Yeah.
but also you have to do equally as much.
You got to filter out the noise
of looking, internally in not always just being like, dude, I was so bad at that when I was young. I would be like, you know, it wouldn't even be like, you know what, maybe I'm doing this wrong. It's like, maybe I'm doing the wrong career in the wrong country. You know, kids nowadays, they probably look at it, they go, fuck, I don't even know. Am I the right gender even? Like,
what is a gender? I don't even know.
They go, dude, you know, you're going to school. You're like, going to school. Maybe I should be a prostitute in India and a boy.
Is prostitution the right profession?
Like, his choices are high. You know what I mean? But now, yeah, I think
abundance of choice.
You were choosing between being a rapper and a punk. You know?
Yeah, that was it.
I'm like, am I in a punk
and
band
a white
or a metal
rapper
band?
at that?
Yeah, or whatever. Right? What school are you going to? I think these people are choosing between, like, you know what I mean? Am I cut contact with my family? Am I going to try to go through just the thought of like, am I going to go through the traditional system of like going to university or trying to get a job, or am I like a digital nomad type?
Yeah.
And like, those are like real insane, like life forks in your road for a lot of people.
Now, especially too, is like people kind of are starting to realize that the college thing is actually going to likely fuck you over too. If you're taking over all this debt.
Oh yeah. You're screwed.
Yeah, now it's even harder. You go, do I go in this crazy amounts of debt that likely I'll never pay back?
Dude, going to college now for most people is the equivalent of going through like as a human just walking through a car wash. You just come in, but
it's like a machine that just like picks you up by your ankles, empties out your pockets, and they go, "There's got to be more in there."
And then takes your brain and sort of fills it up with some nonsense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there's a guy with like an Asian guy sort of at the corner that's just paddling you too. He's just every now and then hitting you with a paddle. But he just
prods, pokes.
Yeah, because he just wants to sort of disorient you while you get your rincing. You know?
Yeah, take the rinsing.
Then you come out of the other end and you go, "Okay, well, glad I went through that. Do I get my job?" And they go, "Job?
No, you could have worked at Starbucks this entire time."
Yeah. So there's just so many choices in doing anything right now. And then you're just like, especially, and then it's not even just one thing, it's everything. You go, look at girls. You go, just, I used to be, maybe do I date these 3 girls? It's like.
And now they're men.
Every girl in the world and every. Yeah.
It's like, which girl do I want? And they go, surprise, they're men now.
It's just so many things that you didn't have to think about that I think increasingly the people that succeed at anything will be the people that are able to guard themselves off from they were able to make their options smaller.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm not the best at that.
It's hard. There's a lot of stimuli.
And then on top of that, first of all, there's homeless people everywhere, but it was a really cool 3
Austin.
days. Yeah.
Our boys didn't get rid of them?
Buddy, it's almost worse than New York where the homeless people are...
Well, because we don't allow tents here. That's the difference.
They do outside of my house.
Well, but those are still, there's no permanent tents, whereas like tent cities, they have those.
Sure.
Like you can like get a mailing, you can get mail to those.
That's true. Yeah. These people, that's a fixed address.
That's a fixed address.
Once they start nailing the pipes into the cement.
They're running plumbing and stuff. And
in LA, they actually are. I filmed there with Danny Mullen, and we talked to these people, and they were telling us it was like a bummer because they had to move because they had their whole like electrical system sorted out, and then they were building something there, so they had to move and get. So now they have to get their generator wired up to something else. These guys have like. The 5-star restaurants there, they have their own ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's Mad Max, you know what I mean?
Very, very much Mad Max.
People are in there, they're trading like beads and shoes for
they have their own economy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, anyways, I go to there, and there was a guy that's actually having like an OD on the street.
Oh, no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess you do see that here, but it felt like par for the course.
Here, you're just so much more manageable to just ignore them. Dude, I walked to the studio this afternoon. This is how weird New York is and how just like acceptable craziness is. This guy was holding a stroller right by the Best Buy. He's holding a baby stroller, and he was having like this. He goes like yelling in public. He's holding a baby stroller on his shoulder, and he goes, "I got a fucking gun in here." He's like, "I'm gonna." And he goes, "These motherfuckers, you think you're coming out?" He's like a younger guy, like probably in his 20s. He's like, "I got a gun. Well, you think you're gonna disrespect me?" He's like, "I'll shoot every one of you motherfuckers."
He's holding a baby stroller.
A baby stroller. On his shoulder, and he goes, but he's like, but it looks like there could maybe be something inside of it. He goes, "I got a gun in here. I'm gonna shoot every one of you motherfuckers. You know how many bullets I got?" Literally, nobody acknowledges him at all. He might as well have been a tree. Like he's talking about shooting up Union Square. Nothing. Everybody's just like, yeah, it's
you
New York.
Do that, buddy.
Yeah, you do that, pal. It's New York. Everybody's like, don't acknowledge him. Like, just. Let him just tire himself out.
You're right, though. Small town, that's an episode.
Talking about shooting up like a fucking busiest, like in one of the busiest intersections in New York City.
Yeah.
Nothing.